What is going on, everybody? We are here. We are into April. Believe it or not, the Final Four is set for March Madness. The Cinderella story ever since these conference championship tournaments. NC State continuing to just get it done. We got Justin back in the saddle with us this week. We're gonna talk through this past weekend's games, check out the TOC Madness leaderboard, and then, of course, dive into the Final Four matchups, all the strategy tidbits you need to know on this short slate for the TOC Madness final contest. Justin, what's going on?
Sup. Yeah, it's been a fun tournament, and I haven't talked to you since we did the stream when I was in Vegas and in Circa just before things were tipping off. Lots happened since then. Madness has gone really well. So, a lot of people excited about it. Definitely got some good feedback throughout as well. And this upcoming weekend, with only 4 teams left, this is, people who've been in the DFS space. I think some may have some familiarity with kind of like single game showdown or short games, short slates. But for the TOC or the Blitz, the world that we're in, this is a bit unique. So I'm excited to kind of break it down, talk through how I would kind of think through some strategy elements to it, and maybe people pick up a nugget or two.
Definitely, yeah. I think this third contest, more than any, requires some additional thought. And with just 4 teams playing, you've also got the strategy elements similar to what it was like with the TOC playoffs, where you certainly want to be picking teams that can have all 5 cards meet in the final matchup. So we're going to get into all of that. Before we do, let's just do the quick A, programming notes, and then B, check out last week's leaderboard. So first things first, Final Four packs are available now. You can purchase packs for $25, or you can go through the exchange process, exchange any 5 cards that you want, plus 99 gold to receive that discounted pack. The packs contain only cards from the Final Four remaining teams. So lot of opportunity there to get some last value out of the cards you have that maybe have not made it to the Final Four. So you can check that on out over at otmnft.com/TOC/packs or /exchange. And then we have the final contest live in the lobby. This is going to be the biggest prize pool that we've had thus far. We've got 68,000 gold in prizes and counting. Top 100 paying out gold. 101 through 200 getting a future snack pack to a future OTM game. We got 222 entries so far. So make sure you're jumping on into that contest, and let's check out. Yeah, there we go. Let's check out last week's leaderboard where Travi24, a lot of familiar names up at the top of this leaderboard was one of the first things I've noticed. But Travi24 and Ace John tying for the lead with 912 points. Travi just barely eking him out on the serials. I mean, I feel like that's pretty tight, 24-40 to 25-85. And they just stacked up what has been to date the 2 best teams. You got the Purdue assist as the hero. Coop and I talked about that on last week's show. Purdue assist has been one of the leading scorers all throughout kind of the regular season and has continued to show that they are a high-performing card during the March Madness tournament, stacking that up with Purdue points and Purdue rebounds, and then the UConn assist and the UConn defense cards. I imagine, I didn't actually go through and do the math, but it's probably pretty close to the optimal score there. I thought this past weekend was also interesting from a scoring standpoint because there were some defense cards out there, I believe, that really scored low, which had an impact for sure. So there were kind of some landmines that you needed to avoid. But shout out to Travi, Ace John, Tiger Mentor, TDD, Penguin. We got Glib in there. We got all kinds of TD Penguin in there a couple times, Glib in there a couple times. So congratulations to all of the winners. And the good news for someone like Travi is that these Purdue and UConn cards are going to come in handy yet again this weekend, more than ever.
Nice. Yeah, no, it was a fun one, and I mean, Purdue and UConn just have looked so good. It'll be interesting. We'll get to the strategy elements going forward as well. I think, yeah, like, yes, you had to have these solid cards to put this kind of lineup together for last week. And then they did perform very well. That UConn went on a 30-0 run in the middle of that game in their Elite Eight. Like, to have that happen against, I think Illinois was the second or third best offense in the country based off metrics, and ended up going on a 30-0 run against them. That was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so taking a look now ahead to this weekend, I'll just kind of tee things up. Always like to pull up the old lines on the DraftKings Sportsbook. And we've got two heavy favorites in this semifinal matchup. I mean, all signs certainly pointing towards a Purdue versus UConn matchup. So, Justin, curious, how likely do you think it is that is indeed the matchup that we have in the finals? Because as you said, they were UConn was certainly the favorite going in. Purdue was right up there as well. And I feel like confidence can only be stronger in them after seeing the way that they've performed, no matter who they're playing against, just absolutely blowing teams out of the water, looking good on all sides of the ball. And, could really be setting up for a awesome final championship game if they're both able to take care of business against NC State and Alabama.
Yeah, so if you're doing it just from like a math based and using kind of the money line as a predictor, you can see right now the spread for NC State produced plus 340 minus 440. So that means like it's a plus 380 without the VIG, which means you're almost getting 4-1. So that means it's like 80% likely that NC State is going to beat Purdue. If you do the math on the UConn side, it's probably a bit more in like the high 80s, like 87 or something like that. You multiply those together, and it looks like there's then like a 65-70% chance that both favorites end up winning. So I think it's fair to say that, yeah, probably 65-70% of the time, both favorites are going to win. But that's still like, I don't know. I mean, it's not a guarantee. And then if we think about like from an actual matchups wise, this NC State team has had to win, what was it? 9 straight games, 5 in the tournament, and then 4 so far, and 5 in the ACC tournament. Had to win all 5. Went through Duke, went through UNC. UVA, they were down 3 with 5 seconds left with UVA at the free throw line and still ended up winning that one. Then if you look at the 4 games that they won in the tournament, by like the shot quality that Justin Perry was on and their company, like they basically should have lost 3 out of those 4 games and still ended up coming away with it. From a matchup wise, like they've got 2 guys basically that run their team. It's Horn and Burns. So one, I'm sure a lot of people familiar with, 6'7", weighed in at 275, but looks more than that. Big boy down under.
Just looks like a straight up lineman out there.
Yeah,
and I mean, I've been impressed by him. It's like he can move too.
He can, and
he's got some finesse.
There was talk that like NFL GM should basically be calling him up to a pro day right after the tournament as a lineman. From a like, and what I think what's most impressive with him, and at least what a lot of people saw in that Elite Eight game, is he has a mid-range game where he can get under the basket, but like still taking these like 8 to 12 footers and making them pretty well. I don't like those shots in general, but it is his specialty, and like he hasn't had much kind of contested shots in that area because of his size, and he can kind of get a little loose. But now, if you're going to have him going against Edey down under,
I was about to say, he can be matched up against the tall dude on Purdue. So that's
so Zach Edey, he's 7'4", 300. What's interesting about his game from a matchup with Burns here is that on defense, what Edey is really good at is making sure that if he's not in position, he's not going to foul. And so he doesn't hack at all. He really only goes after you when he's in that position to begin with, because he knows how important he is to that offense as a whole. So he needs to stay out of foul trouble. And so on the defensive end, like you're going to see where, DJ's going to have opportunities. And if he has any form of position, like he can get a little space, but you've still got a 7-inch difference there where Edey can still play. Kind of just his presence in there is going to cause some trouble. And then, so that's the Purdue NC State. Like, there's a lot of reasons why Purdue is a 9-point favorite. Purdue is a very good team. I think Purdue wins. And then on the UConn side of the ball, UConn also has a big man. I think their big man is 7'3". And they're just such a complete team. They actually got 2 big guys as well that play really well. And they just haven't seen any team really. I think we've seen a couple halves in the tournament where it's like, okay, someone hung with them last week. Illinois, the first half, I think UConn was only up maybe 4 or something at the half. Maybe it was 5, but it's like 20, 23, 27, 27, 3. But then UConn just completely turned it on. So if, it would be an amazing final from like a pure entertainment standpoint, I think Purdue versus UConn. But yeah, who knows in college basketball? One of these obviously could get upset if some 3s start falling. Going to be interesting.
What is going on here? You can bet on any of the matchups, possible matchups? I just noticed this. Like,
yeah, so if you want to get like ahead of, so if the game doesn't happen, then it'll just be Ixnay and the bet won't count. But if NC State and UConn, you can.
I was wondering if it was like the Super Bowl where like they let you bet Christian McCaffrey MVP at like the beginning of the playoffs.
Oh God, no, that was
terrible
horrible.
odds.
It's funny actually. In our Discord,
so bad.
I had mentioned that I think if Purdue and UConn play, like I think UConn would be a 4.5 point favorite. I think it was Trav or someone in there, maybe Meyer, maybe said like, I think it'd be 6.5, and turns out it's right in the middle. There it is at 5.5 for if you want the UConn Purdue. Yeah,
cool. All right, so yeah, I think that breaks things down from a standpoint of the matchups and the games. But what the people really want to know is how do we apply this to TOC Madness, right? Especially in, I feel like, a little bit of a unique setup here where there's a high likelihood of it being a specific matchup. So, okay, I guess baselining even before that, this contest lasts for 3 games. So you have these 2 semifinal games and then the championship game. So if you want to win the contest, rule number 1 is that you need to have 5 live cards that play in the championship game. So you want to create a lineup that only has cards from 2 teams, and you want it to only be 2 teams across the bracket from each other, right? So you never want to play any NC State cards with Purdue cards, because then you are guaranteeing that they all can't make it to the final. So that's kind of the baseline strategy. Just avoid that no to begin with. But then beyond that, how do we think about how you want to approach this? Because from a odds standpoint, right, very likely that it's going to be UConn and Purdue. I also imagine there will be quite a bit of TOC Madness lineups out there with UConn and Purdue. I was trying to think about the math of like how many possible permutations there are. You have it. There we go. Let me just kick it over to you then. Enough rambling. Let's see the math on what Justin's got for us.
Okay. So before we jump into the permutations, let's talk about that strategy element. And so there's one difference, because TJ, you're and I brain, we're initially thinking DFS more. That's just where we come from, where when you are ready to create a lineup, you can choose any outcome you want because you have access to the entire player pool. Here, it's a little different. You only have access to the cards that are in your account, that are in your wallet. Obviously, you can go to the marketplace, you can buy more packs. But when you're ready to submit your lineup, what you have in your wallet, in your account, is what you can play from. So, yes, we expect that like UConn and Purdue are going to be the more likely cards played. And if we were playing a normal DFS, their ownership would be substantially higher than these other teams, right? But the actual amount of cards that are out there should be virtually even, because it's completely random. Now, maybe someone burned an NC State card before the tournament or something, so there's a little more UConn Purdue, but in general, it should be pretty even with how many of these teams are still out here. So the ownership is actually going to be pretty similar, I think. Where there is kind of strategy, without a doubt, is making sure that you are not creating, first off, any form of a dead lineup. And what I mean by that is, if your 5 cards don't have a chance to all play in the finals game, then that lineup, I'm going to say it, has 0 chance of winning this all. You could still place. You can still finish in the top 200, top 100 or something. But if you're not playing something, so an example would be, let's say you go 3 UConn cards, and then you go 1 Purdue and 1 NC State. Obviously, only one of the Purdue NC State can actually make it to the final. So someone else who has those 3 UConn cards is probably going to have 2 of the Purdue or 2 of the NC State. So you're kind of blocked, as we say, and you don't even have a chance of winning that. So there's some strategies there of, obviously from your collection, you should build lineups that tell the story that can play in the finals together against each other. If you've got 4 out of 5, maybe it makes sense to go try to trade one of your 5th for one that does fit your narrative, or go to the marketplace and buy one, or go exchange some more of your old cards, or go buy cheap cards from the marketplace, go exchange and try to get one more. That is kind of a prerequisite. Now, if we take a look at, so TJ showed earlier how many entries were in the tournament already. We have a little more than, I think it was like 222 or something. When I did analysis, there were a little more than 200. But I just wanted to kind of give a view of, all right, so 65 unique users. On average, that's 3 lineups per user. And then 31 people only have 1 lineup right now. So obviously this is going to increase. I expect we're going to see around 650 or so entries based off what we've seen the last 2 weeks, the trend. But if we're going to say that on average, each user only has 3 entries, that means a lot of users are saying, okay, I'm going to make one strong lineup and put these cards to the story. And if you have extra cards, you're not going to not play them. You're still going to play them. But out of those 650 or so lineups that I expect it to be, I think about half of them are not even going to have a chance at having like 5 cards live. Or maybe, maybe it's a third to a half won't have a chance there. So just starting off by having that, hey, you've got a chance, I think that is huge. Now, when we think through kind of the permutations, because in that Discord, there's been a lot of talk about like, oh, I don't have the low cereals. Do I really have a chance? I think it's a valid question, but let's go through it. So in general, there are 3,072 different possible lineup combinations that can be made with these 16 cards. The way we do that is, for the 4 position slots, you have a choice of 4 different cards, 4 different cards, 4 different cards, 4 different cards. And then the final, you can't repeat. So there's 12 other cards. So 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 12 ends up giving you 3,072. That's total possible. Now, there's a lot of dumb lineups in there. As I said, let's only focus on like, hey, here are the ones that have a chance at having 5 live cards in the finals. That answer is now 256. How do we get there? Well, let's say a combo between any 2 teams. If you are convinced that it's going to be UConn and Purdue, and you're curious how many different combos can exist of those for those 5 cards in the finals, there's 64 of those, because again, for each category, there's a choice between 2 cards. UConn, Purdue, points, assists, rebounds, defense, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And then how many cards are left over? The other 4 that you haven't used, you can permutate with those. So that ends up being 64. So I believe that there are 256 different possible lineups that can have a legitimate chance at winning this contest. If you are willing to kind of say, hey, I think that there's going to be an upset and it's not going to be UConn or Purdue, you now have, I think, a great opportunity to win a contest without needing the low cereals. If it ends up being UConn versus Purdue, there's still 64 different possible combinations that could work that you may not need the exact, because who's going to put that hero? How many of each team are you going to do? So I don't know the math on this, but my guess is that cereals are not I'm confident cereals are not nearly as important as a lot of people are thinking they are. And I would be, I think there's a decent chance that the top team that ends up winning, cereals won't even matter. And especially if it ends up happening with one of the upsets of Bama or NC State. But even if it's UConn Purdue, like, that's 64 different permutations of that. And how many people are playing lineups that only have those? Like, much at the end of the day. So it's a lot of stuff there. TJ, react, adapt,
I like it.
take it what you want.
I like it. No, I think it makes sense. I think one of the things that people are maybe not fully conceptualizing yet is the addition of the hero in this contest really like exponentially increases the amount of possible combinations and therefore really decreases the amount of complete duplicates, right? When we were playing the NFL playoff contest, when it's just playing the same 5 cards, much higher chance that you can dupe with someone. In this case, you can play the exact same 5 cards as somebody, but then what? There's 5 different or 4 different combinations within playing the same 5 cards, depending on what you use as that hero card. So I think that makes a ton of sense. And Yeah, I mean, I think if you're somebody out there, like Justin said, it all comes down to what you have in your collection. So first and foremost, just play what you have in your collection and make sure you're adding to it to have the ability to stack up full possible combinations. But could also be a kind of thing where, don't be afraid to take a stand and say, you know what, I think NC State is going to continue sun running, and it's going to be NC State versus UConn in the finals, and I'm going to create 5 to 10 lineups that are NC State and UConn, so that when that happens, I've got 8 different shots at being the top team. And yeah, so I think it makes a ton of sense. And I would not be overly concerned with the cereals, and definitely don't feel like, oh, if I don't have cereals, I have no chance of winning, because you certainly do. And also the payout structures are relatively flat, so it's like not
Yeah,
not
top
it's not like, and that's intentional, right? It's not like the top prize is worth twice as much as anything else. It's pretty flat up top, so even if you end up tying with 2 or 3 different people, you still get a nice payout.
top 100 get 250 gold, top 10 get 1,000 gold, and versus 10K, 7.5K, and 5K. And these actual payouts might change, might actually increase a little. That we were estimating them, but because more packs as they could be sold. But yeah, this is the largest prize pool of the 3 contests, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I think for the Sweet 16, for the Sweet 16 Elite 8 round, it was pretty easy to kind of build a lineup where all those teams were like, you didn't have to take teams that played each other in the first round. Like, you could build a lineup that everyone has.
Uh-oh, now I can't hear you. What just happened? Mm-mm. Looks like Justin just had potentially some technical difficulties there. Oh, he's jumping back in. Let's see if this works.
What about now? Can you hear me?
Yep. We're good.
And so I think what I was saying was like, so for Sweet 16, Elite 8, like, it was pretty easy to find like cards that didn't play each other in that first round. So you could just have it didn't have to be perfect, but like everyone could still advance the next round and play 2 games pretty easily. Here, I think it's so important to make sure that, like, hey, you are submitting lineups that everyone has a chance at playing in 2 games, that the trading should be being used a whole bunch. Because obviously UConn card is more valuable than an NC State card, but it is not nearly as valuable as it probably was in a past round or something. And so maybe we'll see more people who are willing to, I would definitely like 2 NC State cards versus UConn. That feels like a fair trade, or just figuring out to find out how you can get that right one. Or it's probably that much more worthwhile to maybe spend that extra 10 gold, get an extra 5 cards, because yes, you're getting, is it what? You're getting 4 cards? Yeah. You get 4 cards, and maybe that gets you an extra lineup. But more importantly, what it gets you is the ability to kind of switch cards around to make sure you have the opportunity to get that, hey, everyone's playing in the finals, everyone gets the 2 games.
Yeah, great call out there. Get on in the Discord, hit up that hashtag buy sell trade channel, find a trading partner, and I think great point around 2-for-1s being something that can just make a lot of sense in this format. Maybe you have somebody who is just looking to finalize their top end teams, but someone who's looking to add some extra cards to their collection so that they can create their first lineup or second or third or whatever it may be. So love the idea there. You can check all of that out over in the OTM Discord. All right. Anything else that you had over there, Justin?
That's mainly it. I wanted to keep it short and sweet. I was just kind of thinking through this morning. I was like, if I was playing in this, how, like, would I be going to the marketplace to try to get low cereals? Would I be really focusing on that? Like, I kind of realized, like, I don't think it actually matters that much. Like, yes, even if you're going to go as chalky as you can be, which is going 5 cards that are all some variation of UConn and Purdue, and because the point scoring, it isn't like, oh, you have to go assists or defense or points to get the top score in the hero. They're mostly pretty even, and in a 1-game sample, it's definitely mostly random. I think just like, hey, get those combinations, enter smart lineups. But yeah, 5 UConn and Purdue cards. I think obviously that's the play here with the most likely outcome. And if you choose correctly on the, and maybe do a little research, go on the platform and see which stat categories from the UConn and Purdue have people been putting most in the hero lineup. Maybe that's how you can get a little contrarian. I'm sure people who have actually been playing are even taking it multiple steps further than I'm thinking about right now. No question.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, before we shut things down, we got to do a little snack pack giveaway here. So if you're in the chat, hit us with a hashtag Final Four. You can do this in the YouTube chat. You can also do it if you're watching over on the X platform. You can enter giveaways from the X platform, which is a fun little trick that we learned last week. So hashtag Final Four. And it's going to be fun end to the tournament here. I agree with what Justin said there around there's no clear like projection difference between a lot of these cards, right? It's not like this is the Super Bowl and Christian McCaffrey is so obviously the best play, right? There are a lot of different ways that this can go. Fire in those lineups. Make sure that they are constructed in a smart way that gives you the ability to have 5 cards in the final, and then just embrace the madness from there. Hope that the chips fall your way. And either way, I think we've got 3 fun games ahead of us here to watch. And then so we got Saturday, Monday, right? Finals on Monday night. And yeah, so the contest will lock on Saturday with the start of the first game. Make sure you get those exchanges in, hit up the marketplace, find some trade partners, all that good stuff.
I've got we talked about the Calcutta when I was on last time, and one of my Calcutta teams was Purdue. So it's been pretty fun to watch them make this run. And because I think we got them at a good discount because people were down on Purdue after losing to a 16 seed last year. People kind of called them hack jobs, like they, just Edey, you couldn't make it. But hey, Edey just legit put his head down, didn't talk any smack from after losing to a 16 last year, knew he had to show it on the court, and it has been fun to watch.
Yeah. What a bounce back that would be to go from getting knocked off by a 16 seed one year to having a very legitimate shot at winning the tournament this year. Goes to show that reasons
they wouldn't be the first.
Sometimes be. Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right.
UVA.
That's right.
UVA lost to a 16 seed.
Really goes to show.
Imagine how much
March Madness compared to any other sporting event, just anything can truly happen. It's kind of wild.
Imagine the fire that is lit underneath your team after losing to a 16 seed.
Yeah.
And especially like a UVA team where there's not tremendous NBA style talent on there. It's not, hey, we've got a whole bunch of McDonald's All-Americans. You come back, and then Purdue, I'm sure it was similar, where after you lose that 16 seed last year, your team, there's no bigger wake-up call, no bigger kind of reckoning, and to come back, come to the Final Four, be an almost double-digit favorite going into the finals, and that UConn game. I obviously have a Purdue cheering interest in the Calcutta, but a Purdue UConn championship game could be such a fun game.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Good luck in the giveaway. Someone's going to win themselves a little Final Four snack pack. Get you an extra card that you can use this weekend. And the winner is T-Man.
Oh, the JJ. Got the JJ.
T-Man. We always have T-Man hanging out with us in the chat here. Congratulations, my friend. We will get you over that snack pack. Other than that, see you in Discord. Going to get poker set up for tonight. We'll have one last poker tournament with these madness packs up for grabs. So check that on out in the Club GG app. And then I'll be back tomorrow, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, talking a little NBA Top Shot. Congrats, T-Man. All right. Thanks, Justin. Thanks, everyone. Good luck in the contests. Go Purdue.